Abandoned twin girls are rescued by a homeless man until a billionaire sees everything and discovers a truth. No one ever imagined Emma's shrill cry pierced the crisp morning air in Willow Creek Community Park, a sound that felt like a physical blow to Ashley Miller, 25, whose own heart was a frantic drum against her ribs as she watched her 5-year-old daughter race toward the swings, a blur of blonde curls and boundless energy. Olivia, Emma's identical twin, clung to her leg, her wide blue eyes mirroring the terror churning in Ashley's gut. "Emma, wait!" Ashley called, her voice a fragile thing that threatened to shatter in the cool air. She scooped Olivia into her arms, the familiar weight both a comfort and an agony, and sprinted after Emma, her sneakers sinking into the dew-soaked grass. As she neared the swings, a wave of nausea crested within her, and her mind swirled with dark, insidious thoughts whispering, "You can't do this. They're a monster." With hands that trembled so badly she could barely function, Ashley placed Olivia beside Emma on a swing. The girls giggled, blissfully unaware of the storm of torment raging inside their mother. Ashley forced a smile onto her face, a grotesque mask of normalcy, desperately memorizing every single detail of their faces. The golden ringlets catching the morning sun, the impossibly blue eyes, the innocent, trusting smiles. "Mommy's going to get something to eat, okay?" Ashley said, the words catching in her throat like jagged pieces of glass. "Stay here and play. I'll be right back." Emma waved excitedly, lost in the moment. Olivia, always the more perceptive of the two, frowned with a worried little crease between her brows. "Promise, Mommy?" Ashley swallowed the hard lump of grief rising in her throat, hot tears burning the backs of her eyes. "I promise, my love. Mommy always comes back." With one last agonizing glance that seared their images onto her soul, Ashley turned and began to walk away. Each step was a battle against every instinct she possessed, but she kept going, her walk accelerating into a desperate, ragged run as soon as she was out of the girl's sight. Only when she reached her old beat-up car, parked 3 blocks away, did Ashley finally allow the tears to fall, a dam of sorrow bursting inside her. She climbed in and slammed the door, her sobs echoing in the suffocating silence of the small space. "I'm so sorry," she murmured between wrenching gasps. "I'm so sorry, my girls." With shaking hands, Ashley started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving behind not just her daughters, but a fundamental part of her own soul. As Ashley drove away from the park, her mind became a chaotic reel of the events that had led her to this unimaginable moment. 6 years earlier, Ashley had been a young woman whose future seemed as bright and limitless as a summer sky, fresh out of high school with plans to be the first in her family to attend college. Her parents, hard-working people who'd scraped by their whole lives, couldn't have been prouder. Then, one summer night changed everything. Ashley met Rick at a party. He was older, impossibly charming, and radiated success. What began as a summer fling quickly felt like something much deeper, or so Ashley had convinced herself. When she discovered she was pregnant, a cold terror seized her. She tried to tell Rick, but he had vanished, off on some extended business trip. Her deeply religious parents were devastated by the news. The dream of college evaporated, replaced by the harsh, unforgiving reality of being a single mother at 20. The birth of the twins should have been the happiest moment of her life. Instead, it marked the beginning of a nightmare she never imagined possible. Postpartum depression hit her like a freight train, blurring the days into a gray haze of diapers, bottles, and incessant, piercing crying. Ashley could barely drag herself out of bed, let alone properly care for 2 small, helpless children. Her parents tried to help at first, but the tension in their small house soon became unbearable, a toxic cloud of judgment and recrimination. Arguments were constant. "If you had listened to us," her mother would say repeatedly, her words like tiny, sharp knives, "none of this would have happened." Unable to bear the suffocating environment, Ashley took the twins and left home at 21. She found a low-paying job as a waitress and rented a tiny, cramped apartment in the suburbs. During the day, she left the girls at a cheap, run-down daycare, spending sleepless nights consumed with worry about their safety. Bills piled up, a mountain of paper she couldn't climb. The rent was always late, and the fridge was often hauntingly empty. Ashley found herself making impossible choices between buying food for the girls or paying the electricity bill. The constant grinding stress only worsened her depression, creating a vicious cycle she couldn't escape. As Emma and Olivia grew, their distinct personalities began to emerge. Emma was the adventurous one, always ready to explore, her spirit untamed. Olivia was quiet and introspective, preferring to curl up with a storybook, her imagination her greatest escape. Ashley loved her daughters with a fierce, desperate love, but each day became a bigger struggle. She felt like she was drowning, suffocating under the weight of her failure to provide the life her girls deserved. Guilt was a constant companion, a parasite that consumed her, fueling dark thoughts that kept her awake in the long, lonely hours of the night. It was during one of those sleepless nights that the terrible idea began to form in her mind, and once planted, it refused to go away. Back in the present, Ashley pulled over onto a deserted shoulder, the car engine ticking in the sudden silence. She glanced at the back seat, where the girls' backpack still lay, stuffed with toys and snacks for a day at the park that would never happen. The full, crushing reality of what she had done slammed into her with the force of a physical impact. An anguished scream tore from her lips, a raw, primal sound that echoed in the car's silent interior. Ashley folded over the steering wheel, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. "What have I done?" she cried into the silence. "Oh God, what have I done?" A part of her, the mother in her, wanted to turn around, to race back to the park and wrap her daughters in her arms, to take it all back. But fear and shame were a paralyzing poison in her veins. How could she possibly face them now? With trembling hands, Ashley picked up her phone, her thumb hesitating over the numbers to dial the police. But before she could press call, the phone slipped from her sweaty hands and fell to the car floor. Leaning down to grab it, her eyes fell on a crumpled photo tucked into the visor. It was a selfie taken just a few months ago on the twins' 5th birthday. In it, Ashley was grinning widely, Emma and Olivia in her arms, all three of them with frosting smeared on their faces. Ashley traced her daughters' smiling faces with a shaking finger. How could she ever have thought they would be better off without her? With a sudden, fierce resolve, Ashley started the car again. She would go back for her girls. No matter how hard it was, they would face this together. But when Ashley arrived back at the park, her heart plummeted into a cold, dark abyss. The playground was empty. There was no sign of Emma or Olivia. A raw panic gripped her as she ran back and forth, her voice cracking as she called their names. "Emma! Olivia! Where are you? Mommy's here!" But there was no response, only the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, ominous shadows over the deserted park. Ashley sank to her knees on the grass, the crushing reality of what she had done finally hitting her with its full, brutal force. She had abandoned her daughters, and now they were gone. Meanwhile, on the other side of the park, two small figures walked hand in hand, lost and afraid. "Olivia, I'm scared," Emma whispered, squeezing her sister's hand tightly. "Where's Mommy?" Olivia, always the more sensitive of the two, felt hot tears sting her eyes. "She said she'd come back," she replied, her voice trembling. "She promised." The twins wandered aimlessly around the park, their small voices calling for their mother as the sky darkened from blue to a deep, starless purple. Emma, usually so brave and bold, felt her heart thump with a primal fear. Olivia, typically shy, forced herself to be strong for her sister. As the first stars appeared, tiny pinpricks of light in the vast darkness, the girls huddled together under a large oak tree, clinging to each other, shivering with a cold that came from both the dropping temperature and a deep, soul-chilling fear. They finally allowed the tears to fall, their small bodies shaking with silent sobs. "Mommy will find us," Emma said between sobs, more to reassure herself than to comfort Olivia. "She always finds us when we play hide-and-seek." Olivia didn't answer. She just held Emma tighter, her eyes fixed on the shadows that seemed to move and writhe around them. As the night wore on, fear gave way to utter exhaustion. The twins fell asleep in each other's arms, their last whispered words a solemn promise. "We'll stay together, no matter what." And so, abandoned by the mother they loved and trusted, Emma and Olivia spent their first night alone in the world. They had no idea their journey was only just beginning, and that destiny had surprising, unimaginable plans in store for them. Meanwhile, Ashley drove aimlessly around the city, a ghost consumed by guilt and desperation. After hours of crippling indecision, she finally stopped in front of a police station. With a heavy heart and tears streaming down her face, she stepped out of the car, determined to do what was right, even if it meant facing the devastating consequences of her actions. The future was a terrifying unknown, full of dangers and possibilities, but one thing was certain: the lives of Ashley, Emma, and Olivia would never be the same. Dawn arrived, cold and unforgiving, at Willow Creek Community Park. Under the old oak tree, Emma and Olivia slept curled up together, their small bodies trembling against the chilly morning air. Dew had soaked their thin clothes, and their empty stomachs rumbled with a painful hunger. It was in this pitiful state that Jack J.T. Thompson found them. J.T., a 50-year-old man with a graying beard and tired, world-weary eyes, was making his morning rounds through the park. Homeless for 5 years, he knew every corner of that place. The park was his refuge, his makeshift home, away from the pitying and scornful stares of society. When he first saw the two small figures under the tree, J.T. thought they were discarded dolls. But as he got closer, his heart pounded with a sickening realization. They were real children. "Oh, my God," he murmured, kneeling beside them. "Hey, girls. Are you okay?" Emma was the first to wake, her blue eyes filling with fear at the sight of the bearded stranger. She instinctively clung to Olivia, waking her in the process. "Who are you?" Emma asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and cold. "Where's our mommy?" J.T. felt a lump form in his throat. He had seen a lot of misery during his years on the streets, but never anything like this. 2 little girls, obviously abandoned, shivering with cold and hunger. "My name's Mike," he said gently, using his old name in an attempt not to scare them. "I live here, in the park. Are you on your own?" Olivia, now fully awake, began to cry softly. "Mommy said she was going to get food," she sobbed. "She promised she'd come back." J.T. closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a surge of white-hot anger toward whoever had left these children. But he knew he couldn't afford to judge. Life on the streets had taught him that sometimes people did terrible, desperate things when they were pushed to the edge. "How long have you been here?" he asked gently. Emma, assuming the role of spokesperson, replied, "Since yesterday morning. We're hungry and cold, Mr. Mike." J.T. looked around, hoping to see some sign of the girls' parents, but the park was deserted, except for a few early morning joggers. He knew he had to do something, but years of living on the margins had made him cautious. Getting involved meant complications. It meant responsibility, and J.T. had sworn, after losing everything, that he would never again allow himself to be responsible for anyone but himself. But as he looked at those frightened, hungry faces, J.T. felt something break inside him, a distant memory of his former life, back when he was a different man, a man who cared. "Listen," he finally said, "I have a spot not far from here. It's not much, but it's dry and there's a little food. Would you like to come with me until we figure out what to do?" The twins exchanged a look, having one of those silent, profound conversations only twins seem able to have. Finally, Emma nodded. "Okay, Mr. Mike, but only if we stay together." JT smiled, a genuine, tender feeling he hadn't felt in a long time warming his chest. "Of course, you two stick together, I promise." Carefully, he helped the girls to their feet. Emma, still exhausted and cold, insisted on walking by herself, clinging tightly to Olivia's hand. JT admired the little one's courage, a poignant reminder of his own daughter so long ago. No, he couldn't think about that now. JT's home was an old, abandoned maintenance shed behind the park, tucked away in a grove of trees. Years ago, it had stored gardening equipment, but now it served as a shelter for the former professor. With some cardboard for insulation, donated blankets, and items found in the trash, JT had turned the place into something resembling a home. "It's not much," he said as he opened the rusty door, "but it's safe and dry." The twins walked in hesitantly, their eyes widening as they took in the shed's interior. To JT, it was just his humble, cobbled-together abode, but for Emma and Olivia, it felt like a treasure cave. There were piles of books in one corner, a few hardy plants in tin cans by the windows, and even an old battery-powered radio perched on a wooden box. "Wow," Olivia whispered, her eyes shining when she saw the books. "You have a library?" JT couldn't help smiling. "Well, I used to be a teacher a long time ago. I still like to read when I can." He quickly prepared a space for the girls, piling a few clean blankets in a corner. "You must be hungry. Let me see what I have here." As JT rummaged through his meager supplies, his mind drifted to the past, a place he tried not to visit. He remembered his university classroom, packed with students hungry for knowledge. He remembered the respect in their eyes, their thought-provoking questions, the heated, passionate discussions about literature and philosophy. And then, like a fast-forwarded film, he relived his downfall. The car accident that took his wife and daughter, the crushing depression that followed, the alcoholism that destroyed his career, the downward spiral that led him to the streets. JT shook his head, pushing away the painful memories. Now was not the time to get lost in the past. There were two frightened, hungry children who needed him. "Here," he said, offering the twins some crackers and a can of tuna. "It's not much, but it'll help with the hunger." Emma and Olivia ate hungrily, as though they hadn't seen food in days. JT watched them in silence, feeling a complex mix of compassion and concern. What was he going to do with them? Should he take them to the police? But what if they ended up in foster care, separated from each other? As the girls ate, JT noticed their subtle personality differences. Emma, even while starving, offered the best pieces to Olivia. Her eyes were always alert, scanning the surroundings as though looking for threats or opportunities. Olivia, on the other hand, ate quietly, her gaze often returning to the pile of books in the corner. "Do you like stories?" JT asked, trying to break the ice. Olivia nodded enthusiastically, while Emma shrugged. "Olivia loves them," Emma said. "I'd rather play outside." JT smiled. "Well, we have both right here. Books and a whole park outside." After their makeshift meal, JT helped the girls clean up as best he could with the limited resources he had. That was when the full reality of the situation hit him with force. He, a homeless man, was now responsible for two little children. How could he possibly care for them? How could he keep them safe and healthy? The following days were a constant, relentless challenge. JT used all his street survival skills to take care of the twins. He scavenged behind restaurants for decent, untouched food, washed the girls' clothes in a nearby stream, and improvised toys from items found in the park. Emma, always energetic, became JT's little helper. She followed him on his resource runs, quickly learning the subtle tricks of street survival. Her boundless energy and natural curiosity reminded JT of his own youth, before life had hardened and broken him. "Mr. Mike," Emma asked one day while helping him gather bottles for recycling, "why do people throw away so many things?" JT sighed, pondering how to explain society's rampant consumerism and waste to a 5-year-old. Sometimes people don't realize how valuable something is until it's too late, he finally answered. Olivia, meanwhile, found solace in JT's books. She spent hours flipping through the worn pages, even though she couldn't read most of the words. JT began reading to her every night, reviving his long-dormant teaching skills as he explained concepts and answered her curious questions. One night, while reading The Little Prince to Olivia, JT noticed she was drawing, using a piece of charcoal found near a park grill. Olivia created surprisingly detailed images for her age. "That's amazing, Rose," JT praised, his old name for his daughter slipping out before he could catch it, noting how much her drawing of a fox resembled the one from the book. "You have a real talent." Olivia blushed at the compliment, a small, rare smile lighting her usually serious face. "Thank you, Mr. Mike. I like drawing the stories you read." As the days turned into weeks, JT found himself growing more and more attached to the twins. He knew he should take them to the authorities, give them a chance at a normal life, but the thought of being separated from them, of seeing them potentially split from each other, broke his heart. There was also the constant gnawing fear of being accused of kidnapping. Who would believe a homeless man was just trying to help? JT knew his appearance and situation worked against him. One morning, about 3 weeks after he found the twins, JT woke up to the sound of sirens close by. His heart raced when he saw a police car slowly patrolling the park. "Emma, Olivia," he whispered urgently, waking the girls. "We need to hide, quickly." He guided them to an emergency hiding spot he had prepared for situations like this. A small, dense space between thick bushes covered by a camouflage tarp. While crouching in the hideout, JT could hear the officers calling Emma and Olivia's names. His heart ached at the fear in the girls' eyes, but he knew he couldn't risk being caught with them. "Why are we hiding, Mr. Mike?" Emma asked in a whisper. "Can't they help us find Mommy?" JT closed his eyes, feeling the immense weight of his decision. "It's complicated, Emma. Sometimes people don't understand situations like ours. They might think I did something bad by taking care of you." Olivia, always perceptive, took JT's hand. "But you saved us, Mr. Mike. You're good." Olivia's simple, earnest words hit JT like a punch to the gut. Was he good? After all he'd done in his life, after all his failures, did he truly deserve to be called good? When the officers finally left, JT emerged from the hideout with the girls. He knew they couldn't go on like this forever. The twins needed more than he could give them: education, medical care, a normal life. That night, as the girls slept, JT made a painful, gut-wrenching decision. He would write a letter explaining the situation and take the twins to a shelter. It would be hard, but it was the right thing to do. But before he could put his plan into action, fate intervened in a way JT never could have predicted. An unexpected figure would soon enter their lives, changing everything forever. As night fell over the park, JT watched Emma and Olivia sleep peacefully. Despite their difficult circumstances, the twins seemed to have found a sense of safety with him. JT felt a complex mix of pride and sadness, knowing he would soon have to say goodbye. "I promise," he whispered to the sleeping girls, "that I'll do whatever's best for you, no matter what." Little did JT know that fate had other plans, and that the following morning would bring a meeting that would change the course of their lives forever. The next morning, JT woke up early, his stomach in knots, determined to take the twins to a shelter. He prepared a simple breakfast and gently woke Emma and Olivia. "Girls, we need to talk," JT said, his voice heavy. "You deserve more than I can give you. I'm going to take you somewhere safe, where you can have a better life." Emma and Olivia reacted with fear and sadness. "But we want to stay with you," Emma exclaimed. JT explained his decision, emphasizing it was for their own good. The twins reluctantly agreed. As they were preparing to leave, a well-dressed man entered the park. He looked around as though searching for something, his eyes eventually settling on JT and the twins. JT, instinctively protective, positioned himself in front of the girls. The stranger approached, a flicker of recognition dawning on his face. "You must be Emma and Olivia," the man said, his tone gentle yet firm. "I'm Rick. I've been looking for you." JT tensed, ready to protect the twins. Sensing his defensiveness, Rick quickly explained his presence. "I'm a philanthropist," Rick said. "I heard about 2 missing girls and decided to help with the search. I never expected to find them like this." Still wary, JT questioned Rick's intentions. Sensing the delicate situation, Rick offered a solution that would change everyone's fate. "I can offer help for all of you," Rick said. "A safe place, education for the girls, and a chance for you to start over, Mr. JT," answered the former teacher, still cautious but intrigued by the offer. The twins, sensing a shift in the air, looked hopefully at JT. He hesitated, years of distrust clashing with the tantalizing possibility of a better future. Finally, JT nodded. "We'll hear what you have to say, Rick." As the sun rose higher in the sky, the 4 of them left the park together, walking toward an uncertain but hopeful future. Richard "Rick" Blackwood watched JT and the twins in the park, intrigued. The billionaire philanthropist felt an inexplicable, powerful connection to the scene, recalling his own difficult, scrappy childhood. Born in a poor neighborhood, Rick faced adversity from an early age. His alcoholic father left the family when Rick was 8, leaving his mother, Lucy, to work 2 grueling jobs just to keep them afloat. Despite the hardships, Rick excelled at school. A dedicated teacher recognized his sharp mind and fierce potential and guided him. With scholarships, Rick attended a prestigious university, earning degrees in business administration and computer science. His first venture, a financial management app, was an instant runaway success. Rick reinvested the profits in promising startups, building a tech empire within a decade. Now 45, Rick devoted much of his fortune to philanthropy, focusing on education and support for disadvantaged communities. Watching JT and the twins, Rick saw reflections of his own past and decided he had to approach them. "Hello," Rick said carefully, approaching the small group. "My name is Rick. I couldn't help but notice you here in the park." JT instinctively positioned himself in front of the girls, his body language a clear sign of distrust. Rick raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I don't mean any harm. In fact, I'd like to help." "Why?" JT asked, his voice still wary. Rick sighed, choosing honesty. "Because I've been in a similar position, not exactly the same, but close enough to understand." He briefly shared his story, from his impoverished childhood to his rise in the business world. "Now I have the means to make a difference," Rick concluded, "and I'd like to offer that help to you." JT hesitated. Years on the streets had made him deeply skeptical of charity and promises. But something about Rick's sincerity touched a part of him he thought was long dead. "What exactly are you offering?" JT asked. "For starters, a safe place to stay," Rick replied. "I have an empty apartment you can use. I can also help with a job, education for the girls, whatever is needed." Emma and Olivia, listening intently, exchanged hopeful glances. "This seems too good to be true," JT muttered. Rick smiled understandingly. "I get it. How about we start with lunch? We can talk more, and you can decide if you want my help." JT glanced at the twins, seeing the desperate hope shining in their eyes. Finally, he nodded. "All right, we'll have lunch and talk." Over lunch at a nearby cafe, Rick shared more about his foundation and philanthropic projects. Gradually, JT lowered his guard, impressed with Rick's genuine compassion. The twins were fascinated by Rick, peppering him with curious questions about his life and work. Emma, in particular, was enthralled by Rick's stories of technology and innovation. "Did you really invent a phone that can talk to people?" Emma asked, her eyes shining with admiration. Rick laughed. "Well, not exactly. My company developed an app that makes it easier for people to communicate, but the basic idea of a phone has been around a long time." Olivia, quieter, observed Rick carefully. She finally mustered the courage to ask a question. "Mr. Rick, do you have a family?" The question caught Rick off guard. He hesitated before answering. "No, Olivia, I never married or had children. My work has always been my priority." JT noticed a flicker of sadness in Rick's eyes, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. By the end of the meal, JT had made his decision. "We accept your help, Rick," he said, "but I want you to know, I plan to repay it somehow." Rick smiled. "I'm sure we can work something out. For now, let's focus on getting you off the streets." As they headed to the apartment, Rick felt a complex mix of satisfaction and responsibility. He knew this decision would change not only JT's and the twins' lives, but his own as well. On the way, Rick couldn't help reflecting on his own journey. He remembered his early struggles, sleeping in his car while trying to launch his first startup. He recalled the crushing despair when it all seemed about to collapse, and the pure euphoria when he landed his first big investment. Above all, Rick remembered the people who had helped him along the way. The teacher who saw his potential, the investor who believed in his vision, the mentor who guided him through the ups and downs of the business world. Now he had the chance to be that person for JT and the twins. Arriving at the apartment, Rick opened the door and let JT and the girls walk in first. The apartment was spacious and well-furnished, with 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a modern kitchen. Emma and Olivia darted off to explore, their joyous laughter echoing through the space. JT stood in the doorway, clearly impressed and slightly uncomfortable. "This is a lot," JT said softly. "I don't know how we'll ever afford it." Rick placed a reassuring hand on JT's shoulder. "Don't worry about that for now. Think of this as a fresh start. We'll work together to get you on your feet." JT nodded, still a bit overwhelmed. "Thank you, Rick. Really, I don't know how to thank you." Rick smiled. "Seeing you thrive is thanks enough. Now, how about a tour?" As they showed JT and the twins around, Rick explained his plans to help the family. "Tomorrow, I'll arrange for medical checkups for all of you. We'll also get new clothes and whatever supplies you need. Next week, we can start looking for schools for the girls and job opportunities for you, JT." JT seemed a bit overwhelmed by it all. "Rick, this is very generous, but I don't want to be a burden. I can work. I'll do anything to help pay for this." Rick nodded, understanding. "I get it, JT, and I promise we'll find a way for you to contribute. But for now, the most important thing is for you to settle in and recover. Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say." At that moment, Emma and Olivia came running back to the living room, their faces glowing with excitement. "Mr. Rick! Mr. Rick!" Emma cried. "There's a huge bathtub in the bathroom. Can we take a bath in it?" Rick laughed. "Of course you can. In fact, why don't we do that right now? I'm sure a warm bath will feel good for all of you." While JT helped the girls with their bath, Rick headed to the kitchen to prepare a simple dinner with the supplies he'd brought. As he cooked, he couldn't help listening to the laughter and happy conversation coming from the bathroom. The sound filled him with a warmth he hadn't felt in a long, long time. After dinner, with the girls already fast asleep in their new bedrooms, Rick and JT sat in the living room for a more serious conversation. "JT," Rick began, "I know all this must seem surreal, and I understand if you still have doubts or concerns. I want you to know I'm here to help, not to judge or control." JT nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Rick, and you're right, this all feels like a dream. Part of me is expecting to wake up back in that shed at the park." Rick smiled sympathetically. "That's perfectly normal, but I can assure you, this is real." And as for the future, well, let's face it one day at a time. Tomorrow, after the medical exams and shopping, why don't we talk about your skills and interests? Maybe we can find a job that really fits your talents. JT looked surprised. You actually care about what I want to do? Of course, Rick replied. JT, you're not just a charity case to me. The three of you are people with dreams, skills, and potential. My goal is to help you realize that potential. JT was silent for a moment, emotion thick in his voice. You know, Rick, I used to be a teacher. I taught English literature at a university. Feels like it was a lifetime ago. Rick leaned forward, intrigued. A teacher? That's fascinating, JT. What happened? JT sighed deeply. It's a long story. It involves loss, depression, some very bad decisions. But the most important thing is, I lost my way. I lost my passion for teaching, for life in general. Rick nodded compassionately. And now? Do you still miss teaching? JT glanced toward the bedrooms where the girls slept. You know, these last few months, caring for Emma and Olivia, reading to them, teaching them, I think I've rediscovered something I thought was gone forever. Rick smiled. That's wonderful, JT. Maybe we can explore ways for you to start teaching again. Not necessarily at a university right away, but there are plenty of ways to educate and inspire. JT looked at Rick, a mix of hope and caution in his eyes. You really think that's possible, after everything? JT, Rick said firmly, I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and from what I've seen and how you care for these girls, you definitely have a lot to offer as an educator. JT swallowed hard, visibly moved. Thank you, Rick. Really, thank you. Rick stood, extending a hand to JT. Don't mention it. Now, we should rest. We've got a big day tomorrow. As he prepared to leave, Rick paused at the door. Oh, and JT, I left my phone number on the kitchen table. If you need anything, at any time, don't hesitate to call. JT nodded, grateful. Good night, Rick, and thanks again for everything. Rick smiled one last time before heading out. As he walked to his car, he couldn't shake a profound sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Helping JT and the twins wasn't just another philanthropic project. It felt more personal, more meaningful. Yet, as he drove home, Rick couldn't quell a nagging unease. The twins' story, how they ended up in the streets with JT, still intrigued him. He sensed there was more to the story than met the eye, and part of him was determined to uncover the truth. Arriving at his penthouse, Rick went straight to his office. He sat at his desk and picked up the phone, dialing a familiar number. Hello, Ronnie. It's Rick. Sorry to call so late, but I need your services. A pause. Yes, it's a new case. 2 little girls, twins, about 5 years old. I want a full investigation into their origins. Discretion is crucial. Another pause. Yes, we can discuss details tomorrow. Thanks, Ronnie. Hanging up, Rick leaned back in his chair, his thoughts a complex mix of hope and worry. He knew he was getting deeply involved, maybe more than he should. But something about JT and the twins affected him in a way he couldn't fully explain. Let's hope for the best, Rick murmured to himself before finally heading off to bed. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, JT lay on the couch, unable to sleep. His mind raced with the day's incredible events, with the seismic shift in their circumstances. He rose quietly and tiptoed to the girls' room. Emma and Olivia slept soundly, their faces peaceful for the first time in weeks. JT felt a wave of emotion wash over him, seeing them safe and comfortable. He knew accepting Rick's help had been the right choice, whatever the future held. I promise, JT whispered to the sleeping twins, I'll do everything I can to give you the life you deserve. With that silent promise, JT returned to the couch, finally feeling the weight of the day's events. As he drifted off, his last thoughts were of gratitude for Rick, for this second chance, and for the 2 little lives that had given his own a new sense of purpose. Night wore on, wrapping the city in darkness. In 3 different places, the mansion of Rick Blackwood, the new apartment, and a small home in a distant neighborhood where a young mother wept for her lost daughters. Fate was in motion, weaving a web of connections that would soon surface, changing everyone's lives forever. The next morning, Rick returned to the apartment. He accompanied JT and the twins to their medical checkups and then out shopping for clothes and supplies. Throughout the day, Rick and JT discussed future plans, including the possibility of JT returning to teaching. The twins were thrilled by their new experiences, especially the idea of going to school. Rick watched the interaction between JT and the girls, noting the strong, loving bond they had formed. Before leaving, Rick reaffirmed his commitment to helping the family. He promised continued support and said he would work to create opportunities for them all. As Rick departed, he reflected on the situation's complexity and the investigation he had started. He knew the coming days would bring challenges and, possibly, surprising revelations. In the following weeks, JT and the twins faced significant changes. Rick found JT a job as a custodian at his company. Initially uncomfortable, JT soon adapted, grateful for the chance to earn an honest living. The twins were enrolled in a local school. Emma, outgoing and charismatic, quickly made friends. Olivia, more timid, struggled at first, but found comfort and solace in the school library. The first days at school brought challenges. Emma experienced some teasing because of her donated clothing, but her strong, resilient personality helped her overcome it. Olivia impressed her teachers with her detailed, imaginative drawings. JT, at his new job, rediscovered his passion for learning. He began studying in his spare time, dreaming of one day returning to teaching. Rick watched the family's progress with a deep sense of satisfaction, but remained intrigued by the mystery of the twins' origin. Discreetly, he continued the private investigation, determined to uncover more about their past. At night, JT would reflect on the incredible changes in their lives. The twins slept peacefully in their warm beds, exhausted after days full of new experiences. Rick dropped by for a visit, bringing news about the investigation's progress. He revealed that the investigators had found promising leads about the twins' background. JT expressed his gratitude, but also his deep concern about what these discoveries might mean for his future with the girls. Rick assured JT of his continued support, regardless of the outcome. As Rick left, JT felt a mix of hope and apprehension. He knew the coming days might bring revelations that would once again transform their lives. Rick kept up his regular visits, monitoring the family's progress and the ongoing investigation. JT and the twins adapted well to their new life, though they faced occasional hurdles. One evening, Rick shared a significant discovery from the investigators. They had located information about the twins' biological mother. JT grew anxious, a cold fear gripping him that he might lose the girls. Rick assured JT that he would continue supporting them, no matter the results. He proposed a plan to address the situation legally, safeguarding everyone's interests. The chapter ended with JT holding the sleeping twins, determined to face any obstacle to keep them safe and happy. Rick left, preparing for the complexities that would come with these new findings. Rick Blackwood sat in his luxurious office, staring through the panoramic window that offered a breathtaking view of the city. His fingers tapped restlessly on the polished mahogany desk, his thoughts spinning over what he was about to do. He picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. "Ronnie, it's Rick. I need you to personally handle an investigation for me. It's delicate." On the other end of the line, Veronica Ronnie Sterling, owner of the renowned Sterling Investigations Agency, listened attentively as Rick explained the situation with the twins and JT. "Understood, Rick," Ronnie replied, her voice calm and professional. "I'll assemble a discreet team and get started immediately. You'll have regular updates." Meanwhile, in a modest apartment across the city, Jack Thompson woke with a start, cold sweat trickling down his brow. Another nightmare about his days on the streets. He glanced at the clock. 3:47 a.m. Sighing, he rose quietly and went to the girls' bedroom. Emma and Olivia slept soundly, wrapped in colorful blankets Rick had bought for them. JT smiled, feeling a surge of love and protectiveness that still surprised him with its intensity. He remembered how things had been just a few weeks ago, sleeping in an abandoned shed, always with one eye open, fearing someone might harm or separate them. Now they had a roof over their heads, food on the table, and most importantly, a chance for a better future. All thanks to Rick, a man JT barely knew who had changed their lives in ways he was still trying to comprehend. JT returned to the living room knowing he wouldn't be able to sleep. He picked up one of the books Rick had left for him, a poetry anthology. His eyes skimmed the familiar pages, words he used to teach coming back to him. For a moment, he allowed himself to dream of possibly teaching again someday. The next morning, JT made breakfast for the twins. Emma, ever energetic, bounced out of bed as soon as she smelled pancakes. "Good morning, Uncle JT," she exclaimed, hugging him around the waist. "Can I help make the juice?" JT smiled, ruffling the girl's hair. "Of course you can, little one. Go grab the oranges from the fridge." Olivia appeared a few minutes later, rubbing sleepy eyes. She sat at the table, watching Emma and JT work together in the kitchen. "I had a weird dream," Olivia said quietly. JT and Emma paused, turning their attention to her. "What kind of dream, honey?" JT asked gently. Olivia hesitated for a moment. "I dreamed about Mommy. She was crying and saying she was sorry." A heavy silence fell over the kitchen. JT felt his heart clench. He knew the girls still thought of their mother, still felt the deep pain of abandonment, even though they rarely spoke of it. "Come here, Olivia," JT said, opening his arms. Olivia ran to him, burying her face in his chest. Emma joined the hug, wrapping her arms around her sister and JT. "It's okay to have those dreams," JT said softly. "And it's okay to miss your mom. But I want both of you to know that I'm here now, and I always will be. Nothing will separate us." The girls nodded, tightening the hug for a moment before pulling away. JT drew a deep breath, forcing a smile. "Now, how about those pancakes?" The rest of the morning passed normally. JT took the girls to school, watching proudly as they ran off to join their new friends on the playground. Emma, always sociable, was already at the center of a group of laughing children. Olivia, more reserved, found her spot with a small group near the library. JT waved goodbye one last time before turning to head to work. His new job as a custodian at Rick's company wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work and gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, in his office, Rick was receiving the first substantial report from Ronnie. "We managed to find the twins' birth records," Ronnie explained, handing Rick a folder. "The mother is Ashley Miller, currently 25 years old. The father is listed as unknown." Rick nodded, flipping through the documents. His heart nearly stopped when he saw a photo attached to the file. It was a younger Ashley, likely taken a few years ago. Long-buried memories began to surface. "Rick?" Ronnie's voice drew him back to the present. "There's more. Ashley briefly worked at your company about 5 years ago. She was an intern in the marketing department." Rick closed his eyes, feeling a wave of dizziness. He remembered Ashley now, young, bright, full of innovative ideas. He recalled a company party, too much alcohol, an intimate conversation in his office. "Rick, are you all right?" Ronnie asked, clearly worried. Rick opened his eyes, forcing himself to remain composed. "Yes, I'm okay. Just surprised. Go on, please." Ronnie studied him for a moment before continuing. "Ashley disappeared soon after abandoning the twins. We're tracking her movements, but she covered her tracks well." Rick nodded, his mind spinning with the implications of what he had just learned. "Keep looking, Ronnie. We need to find her." In the weeks that followed, Rick threw himself into work, trying to distract himself from the unsettling revelations. He continued visiting JT and the twins regularly, watching with a mix of pride and unease as they adapted to their new life. JT was thriving at his new job. Rick observed him interacting with other employees, always polite and hardworking. Sometimes he caught JT reading during his breaks, literature, history, science. The former teacher's agile mind clearly hungered for knowledge. The twins were also progressing. Emma had become one of the most popular kids in her class, always at the center of activities and games. Olivia, though quieter, excelled academically. Her teachers praised her creativity and artistic ability. But not everything was perfect. JT still struggled with occasional nightmares, echoes of his time on the streets. The twins, though happy in their new life, sometimes woke up crying for their mother. Rick felt increasingly connected to this little makeshift family. He found himself thinking about them constantly, worrying about their well-being and dreaming about their future. It was a new and somewhat frightening feeling for the solitary billionaire. Finally, nearly 2 months after the investigation began, Ronnie walked into Rick's office, wearing a grave expression. "We found her," she said without preamble, placing a folder on Rick's desk. Rick picked up the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a detailed report and several photos. The first photo showed a young woman with disheveled blonde hair and dark circles under her eyes. But there was no doubt it was Ashley. "Where?" Rick asked, his voice hoarse. "She's living in a small town a few hours away," Ronnie explained, "working as a waitress in a local restaurant. From what we've gathered, she's struggled with depression and substance abuse since abandoning the twins." Rick studied the photo, a complex mix of emotions welling up inside him. Anger at the girl's abandonment, compassion for Ashley's obvious struggles, fear of what her existence might mean for JT and the twins' future. "What do you want to do, Rick?" Ronnie asked gently. Rick remained silent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he looked at Ronnie, determination in his eyes. "Set up a meeting," he said. "I need to speak with her in person." Ronnie frowned. "Rick, I have to warn you about the legal risks if Ashley decides to fight for custody of the twins." "I know," Rick interrupted, "but I have to do this. I need to understand everything." Ronnie nodded reluctantly. "I'll arrange it. But Rick, be careful." That night, Rick visited JT and the twins. He watched as JT helped them with their homework, laughing and joking. The apartment, once sterile and impersonal, was now filled with life. The twins' drawings decorated the walls. Books and toys were scattered around the living room. After the girls were in bed, Rick and JT sat on the balcony, sipping coffee. "How are things going, JT?" Rick asked. JT smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that lit up his tired face. "Surprisingly well, Rick. The girls are happy, learning so much. And me? Well, I'm starting to feel like myself again, like the person I used to be before everything went wrong." Rick nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. He knew he had to tell JT about Ashley and the investigation, but looking at the man before him, seeing the peace and happiness in his eyes, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Not yet. "I'm happy to hear that, JT," Rick said instead. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." JT looked at Rick, gratitude shining in his eyes. "All thanks to you, Rick. We'll never be able to thank you enough for what you've done." Rick felt his heart tighten. "You don't owe me anything, JT. Seeing you happy and thriving is all I could ask for." They fell silent for a moment, gazing at the city lights below. Finally, JT spoke again. "You know, I've been thinking a lot lately, about the future, about what I want to do with my life." Rick turned to him, interested. "And what have you decided?" JT hesitated for a moment before continuing. I think I want to teach again. Not necessarily at a university, at least not right away. Maybe at a night school, or by tutoring. Just the thought of being in a classroom again, sharing knowledge, helping people learn and grow, it excites me in a way I haven't felt in years." Rick smiled, feeling a rush of pride. "That's wonderful, JT, and if that's what you want, I'll do whatever I can to help make it happen." JT looked at Rick, tears threatening to spill. "You've already done so much for us, Rick. I can't ask for more." Rick placed a hand on JT's shoulder. "You're not asking, JT. I'm offering, because that's what friends do." JT nodded, too moved to speak. They sat there, content in the silence, until JT finally rose to go to bed. Rick stayed on the balcony a while longer, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. He knew his actions in the next few days could change everything. Meeting Ashley could bring to light truths that would forever alter the course of their lives. But looking back into the apartment, hearing the soft sounds of the twins sleeping and JT moving quietly down the hall, Rick knew he would do anything to protect this little family, even if it meant facing his own past and the consequences of his actions. With a long sigh, Rick stood and left the apartment, mentally preparing himself for what was to come. In the days that followed, Rick immersed himself in preparations for the meeting with Ashley. He consulted lawyers, psychologists, even a family mediator. He wanted to be ready for any possible scenario. Meanwhile, life went on for JT and the twins, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. Emma brought home her first A+ in math, proudly showing her test to JT and Rick. Olivia won her school's art contest, her delicate drawing of a park filled with happy families warming everyone's hearts. JT, inspired by his conversation with Rick, began researching teacher certification programs and local night school opportunities. He spent his free evenings studying, rekindling his passion for learning and teaching. Finally, the day of the meeting with Ashley arrived. Rick woke early, feeling the immense weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He chose one of his simplest suits, not wanting to overwhelm Ashley with his wealth. The chosen spot for the meeting was a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city. Rick arrived an hour early, his heart pounding in his chest. He ordered a coffee, barely touching it, his eyes constantly flicking to the door. Right on time, the cafe door opened. Rick felt his heart stop for a moment as he saw Ashley walk in. She looked thinner than he remembered, with dark circles under her eyes, but there were still traces of the vibrant young woman he once knew. Ashley saw him and froze momentarily, recognition and shock crossing her face. Slowly, she walked toward Rick's table, sitting down silently. For a few moments, neither spoke, the tension between them a palpable thing filled with unspoken emotions. Finally, Rick broke the silence. "Thank you for coming, Ashley." Ashley nodded, her gaze fixed on the table. "Why did you look for me, Rick? After all these years?" Rick took a deep breath. "It's about your daughters, Ashley, Emma and Olivia." Ashley's head snapped up, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. "You found them. Are they okay? Please tell me they're okay." Rick nodded. "They're safe and well cared for, but we need to talk about what happened and what happens next." Tears began sliding down Ashley's face. "I never wanted to leave them. I was desperate, depressed. I thought they'd be better off without me." Rick listened as Ashley poured out her story of regrets, describing her battle with depression, poverty, and the soul-crushing despair that led her to make a decision she regretted every single day. When she finished, Rick spoke gently. "Ashley, there's something else you need to know, something about the girl's father." Ashley looked at him, confused. "Their father? But I never knew who." Rick interrupted kindly. "Ashley, I believe I'm Emma and Olivia's father." The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley stared at Rick, shock and dawning realization slowly spreading across her face. "The company party?" she whispered. I never thought." Rick nodded gravely. "I didn't know either until recently, but the resemblance is undeniable." Ashley covered her face with her hands, silent sobs shaking her shoulders. Rick waited patiently, knowing she needed time to process. Finally, Ashley looked up, her eyes red but determined. "What now, Rick?" Rick sighed. "That depends on us, Ashley. The girls are happy and safe. They have a loving home with a man named JT who found them and cared for them. But they also deserve to know their mother and their biological father." Ashley nodded slowly. "I want to see them. I want to be part of their lives, but I don't want to destroy the stability they finally have." Rick offered a small smile. "We can work on that together, Ashley, step by step. The important thing is Emma and Olivia's well-being." As the sun set outside the cafe, Rick and Ashley continued their conversation, carefully planning the next steps. Both knew the road ahead would be complicated and emotionally charged, but they were determined to do what was best for the twins. The chapter ended with Rick and Ashley leaving the cafe, a tentative agreement in place. Rick knew he still had to tell JT about these discoveries, a conversation he dreaded but knew was necessary. As he drove home, Rick reflected on how much his life had changed in the past few months. What started as an act of charity had turned into a journey of self-discovery, redemption, and above all, unconditional love. With renewed determination, Rick prepared for the challenges ahead. He knew that together they could find a way to build a united, loving family for Emma and Olivia, no matter how unconventional it might be. Rick Blackwood straightened his tie as he surveyed the small cafe's exterior, his heart thudding with a mix of anxiety and apprehension. Taking a deep breath, he went inside, choosing a discreet table at the back. Each passing minute increased the weight on his shoulders. He had located Ashley, the twins' mother, and was about to confront her with questions that could change everything. Right at 3, the cafe door opened. Ashley walked in, scanning the room until she spotted Rick. For a moment, she hesitated, as if considering turning around and leaving. Then, squaring her shoulders, she walked toward him. "Hello, Rick," she said softly, taking a seat across from him. Rick studied Ashley's face. Time had not been kind to her. Deep circles shadowed her eyes, and lines of worry creased her forehead. Still, he could see hints of the vibrant young woman he'd known years ago. "Thank you for coming, Ashley," Rick said, his voice controlled. A tense silence fell between them. A waitress arrived, briefly breaking the tension. Both ordered coffee, more for something to do than out of real desire. Finally, Rick spoke. "Ashley, I'm sure you're wondering why I reached out after all these years." Ashley nodded slowly. "I admit I was surprised by your message, and a little scared." Rick leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "It's about Emma and Olivia." The effect was immediate. Ashley paled, her hands trembling visibly. You found them? They're okay? Please tell me they're okay." "They're safe," Rick said quickly. "They're being cared for." Tears welled up in Ashley's eyes. "Thank God," she whispered. "Not a day goes by that I don't think of them, that I don't regret." "Why, Ashley?" Rick asked, his tone a mix of compassion and reproach. "Why abandon them?" Ashley lowered her gaze, shame evident on her face. "I was desperate, Rick, depressed, broke, with no support. I thought they'd have a better chance without me." Rick felt a pang of guilt. If only he'd known, if only he'd paid more attention. "Ashley," he said gently, "there's something else we need to discuss, something about the girl's father." Ashley looked at him, confused. "The father? But I never knew who—" Rick cut her off softly. "Ashley, I believe I'm Emma and Olivia's father." The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley stared at Rick, her eyes widening with the shock of his revelation. "No," she whispered, "that can't be." "The company party almost 6 years ago," Rick said gently. We spent the night together." Recognition flickered on Ashley's face, followed quickly by a storm of emotions: shock, fear, shame. I didn't know it was you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I was so drunk that night. And when I found out I was pregnant, you were already gone, on a long business trip. I tried to reach you, but I never responded," Rick finished, guilt lacing his voice. "Ashley, if I'd known—" "No," Ashley exclaimed, surprising Rick with her vehemence. "Don't say that. You didn't know. It's my fault. I should have tried harder, should have been stronger." Tears rolled freely down Ashley's cheeks now. Rick felt a knot tighten in his throat. "Why didn't you come to me when things got tough?" he asked softly. Ashley let out a bitter laugh. "And say what, Rick? Hey, remember that intern you slept with once? Surprise, you're the father of twin girls. You were Rick Blackwood, the billionaire philanthropist. I was nobody." Rick closed his eyes, feeling the weight of years of misunderstandings and missed opportunities. When he opened them again, he saw Ashley watching him intently. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Rick took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. Discovering his paternity had hit him like a freight train, and he was still struggling to process it all. I don't know," he admitted honestly. "This changes everything, Ashley. The girls, they're my daughters, our daughters." Ashley nodded slowly, tears still falling. "I want to see them, Rick. I know I don't deserve it after what I did, but they're my life. Not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did." Rick felt a wave of compassion for Ashley. Despite her actions, he could see the genuine love and remorse in her eyes. "They're with a man named JT, Rick explained. "He found them in the park after they were left alone. He's been taking care of them ever since." Ashley covered her face with her hands, sobs shaking her body. "Oh, God," she murmured. "My girls, they must hate me." Rick gently placed a hand on her arm. "They don't know, Ashley. JT never told them about the abandonment. He protected them from that." Ashley looked at Rick, surprise and gratitude in her eyes. "This JT, he seems like a good man." "He is," Rick agreed. "He loves the girls as if they were his own. And they love him too." Silence fell between them again, both lost in thought. Rick was trying to reconcile his new reality as a father with his responsibilities to JT and the twins. Ashley seemed to be wrestling with her guilt and her fierce desire to reconnect with her daughters. Finally, Rick spoke. "Ashley, we have to think carefully about how to handle this. The girls are happy and stable right now. We can't just barge into their lives and turn everything upside down." Ashley nodded, wiping away her tears. "I know, I don't want to hurt them more than I already have. But Rick, I need to be part of their lives. I need to try to fix what I did." Rick took a deep breath. "Let's do this step by step, okay? First, I need to talk to JT. He deserves to know the truth before we make any decisions." "And then?" Ashley asked, a note of hope creeping into her voice. "Then the three of us, you, me, and JT, sit down to discuss how to proceed. The girls are our priority here, Ashley. We have to do what's best for them." Ashley nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. "I understand. And Rick, thank you for not judging me, for giving me this chance." Rick offered a slight smile. "We all make mistakes, Ashley. The important thing is how we choose to correct them." They spent the next hour talking about practical details, exchanging phone numbers, scheduling another meeting. When they finally stood up to leave, both looked exhausted, but had a renewed sense of purpose. "I'll get in touch as soon as I've spoken to JT, Rick promised as they parted ways on the sidewalk outside the cafe. Ashley nodded. "I'll be waiting. And Rick. Please, take good care of them until then." Rick watched Ashley leave, a swirl of emotions churning inside him. He was a father to two wonderful girls who had already captured his heart before he even knew they were his daughters. Now came the hardest part, telling JT. Rick drove to JT's apartment on autopilot, his mind rehearsing different scenarios for the conversation to come. Once parked, he sat in the car for several minutes, gathering the courage to do what needed to be done. Finally, he stepped out and climbed the stairs. JT answered the door with a smile, which quickly turned to concern at Rick's serious expression. "Rick, what's wrong?" "JT, can we talk? It's important." JT nodded, leading Rick inside. The twins were still at school, leaving the apartment silent and tense. Sitting in the living room, Rick took a deep breath before starting. "JT, I've discovered something about the girls, about their biological parents." JT straightened, alert. "What? How?" Rick briefly explained the investigation and finding Ashley. Then, with a heavy heart, he revealed the truth about his own paternity. The silence that followed was overwhelming. JT stared at Rick, shock and disbelief written on his face. You're their father?" JT finally managed, his voice barely audible. Rick nodded miserably. "I didn't know, JT. I swear, I didn't know until now." JT stood abruptly, pacing the room. Rick watched anxiously, dreading his reaction. "Are you going to take them away?" JT asked suddenly, turning to face Rick. "No," Rick exclaimed. "JT, I would never do that. You're their family. You saved them, cared for them when no one else did." JT seemed to relax slightly, though the tension remained. "Then what happens now?" Rick sighed. "Honestly, I don't know. But I do know I want to be part of their lives. And Ashley wants to reconnect with them too. But you, JT, you're crucial to their well-being. We need to figure out how to make this work for Emma and Olivia." To Rick's surprise, JT sat next to him on the couch, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Rick, I know this must be a shock for you too. And, well, I appreciate your honesty. A lot of men in your position would just take the girls and go." Rick looked at JT, gratitude filling his eyes. "I'd never do that to you, JT, or to the girls. They love you. You're their father in every way that matters." JT nodded slowly. "So what do you suggest?" "I think we should meet, you, me, and Ashley, and talk about how to introduce these changes in the girls' lives as gently as possible. Maybe we should see a family therapist, someone who can guide us on how best to approach this." JT agreed. "That sounds reasonable. Rick, thank you for being honest with me. I know it couldn't have been easy." Rick offered a sad smile. "It's the least I can do, JT. You've been an incredible father to them. I hope we can work together to give Emma and Olivia all the love and support they deserve." The two men looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. The road ahead would be difficult, but both were determined to do what was best for Emma and Olivia. In the days that followed, Rick arranged a meeting between himself, JT, and Ashley. It was tense at first, with Ashley battling her guilt and JT still processing the recent revelations. But as they talked, sharing their worries and hopes for the future, a sense of unity began to form. All three wanted the best for Emma and Olivia and were prepared to set aside their differences to achieve it. They decided to consult a family therapist specialized in complex custody situations. The plan was to introduce Ashley gradually into the girls' lives, initially as a family friend. Rick would continue in his current role, but with increasing involvement in Emma and Olivia's day-to-day routine. The whole truth would only be revealed to the twins when they deemed they were emotionally ready to handle it. Meanwhile, Rick began the legal process of officially recognizing his paternity, working closely with lawyers to ensure that everyone's rights were respected and that the twins' best interests were always the priority. The chapter ended with Rick, JT, and Ashley sitting together in the apartment's living room, watching Emma and Olivia play in the backyard through the window. The future was still uncertain, filled with potential complications and emotional challenges. But there was also hope. Hope that together they could create a loving, stable environment for the twins, no matter how unconventional their family might be. Rick looked at JT and Ashley, seeing in their faces the same resolve he felt. They would make this work for Emma and Olivia. The journey would be hard, but it was worth it. And it was only just beginning. "So," Rick said quietly, "how do we tell the girls?" JT and Ashley exchanged glances, and then JT spoke. "One step at a time. First, let them meet Ashley as our friend. Then, well, we'll see how they react." Ashley nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I just want them to know they're loved. By all of us." Rick smiled, feeling a wave of emotion. "They will, Ashley. We'll make sure of it." As the sun set outside, the three adults continued talking, carefully planning the next steps of their unusual journey. "I think we should arrange a casual meet-up at the park," JT suggested. "The girls love playing there, and it would be a relaxed setting for Ashley to meet them." Rick and Ashley agreed with the idea. They decided the meeting would take place the coming weekend, giving everyone time to prepare emotionally. "So, remember," Rick said, "we'll follow the therapist's advice. No pressure, no sudden revelations. Just a normal day at the park." Ashley nodded, wiping away a tear. "I can't wait to see them, even if they don't know who I really am yet." JT placed a comforting hand on Ashley's shoulder. "They'll love you, Ashley. Just be yourself." As they wrapped up the evening, the three shared a look of mutual understanding. The road ahead would be challenging, but they were united in their love for Emma and Olivia. Rick was the last to leave. Standing at the door, he looked at JT. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." JT nodded, a small smile on his face. "We're a family now, Rick, an unconventional one, but still a family." Those words echoed in Rick's mind as he left, his heart full of apprehension and hope for the future. The next chapter of their lives was about to begin, and he was determined to do right by his daughters and this new, unexpected family. The sun shone gently on Willow Creek Community Park as Rick arrived, his heart pounding. He spotted JT and the twins near the playground, the girls laughing on the swings. Ashley hadn't arrived yet, and Rick could sense the tension in the air. "Uncle Rick!" Emma shouted, jumping off the swing and running toward him. Olivia followed more cautiously, a shy smile on her face. Rick knelt to hug them both. "Hello, my sweet girls. Having fun?" JT approached, his expression a blend of anxiety and resolve. "They're excited," he said quietly. "They haven't stopped asking about the special friend they're meeting today." Rick nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. At that moment, he saw Ashley entering the park, looking hesitant and nervous. "There she is," Rick murmured to JT. Turning to the girls, he smiled. "Girls, how about we go meet our friend?" Emma agreed eagerly, while Olivia clung to JT's hand, suddenly shy. As they approached, Rick could see the tears welling in Ashley's eyes. She stopped, frozen, gazing at her daughters for the first time in months. "Hi," Ashley said softly, her voice trembling. "I'm Ashley. It's nice to meet you." Chai, Emma, ever outgoing, stepped forward. "Hi, Ashley. I'm Emma, and this is my sister Olivia. Do you want to play with us?" Ashley smiled through her tears. "I'd love to, Emma." The next few hours blurred into a mix of play, laughter, and careful conversations. Ashley tried hard to connect with the twins, answering their questions and joining their games. Rick and JT watched closely, stepping in when needed and silently offering their support. As the afternoon wore on, they gathered for a picnic. Rick knew it was time for the conversation they had planned so carefully. "Emma, Olivia," he began softly, "there's something important we need to tell you." The girls looked at him curiously, sensing the change in tone. Rick took a deep breath. "You know every child has biological parents, right? Well, Ashley is your biological mother." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma and Olivia looked from Ashley to JT, confusion evident on their faces. "But Uncle JT is our dad," Emma said, her voice shaking. JT quickly hugged them both. "I'll always be your dad, girls. Nothing will change that. But Ashley is the mom who gave birth to you." Olivia, ever perceptive, turned to Rick. "And you, Uncle Rick?" Rick felt his heart clench. I'm your biological father, Olivia. Both of yours." The tears came then. Emma sobbed openly, while Olivia curled into JT's arms, silent but visibly shaken. Ashley moved hesitantly, wanting to comfort her daughters, but unsure if she'd be welcome. Rick placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, encouraging her. "I know this is a lot to take in," Ashley said softly, "and I know I've made mistakes. But I love you both more than anything, and I'm here now. If you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your lives." Emma looked at Ashley, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Will you leave again?" Ashley's heart broke at the question. "No, sweetheart, never again, I promise." Olivia finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we still live with Uncle JT?" JT pulled Olivia close. "Of course, sweetheart. This will always be your home." Rick watched the scene, feeling both included and like an outsider. He desperately wanted to connect with his daughters, but he knew he had to respect their space and time. "Girls," he said gently, "I know this is a lot, but I want you to know that all of us, Ashley, JT, and me, love you very much. We'll always do whatever's best for you." Emma and Olivia nodded, still clinging to JT, but their curious gazes shifted to Rick and Ashley. In the days and weeks that followed, the new family dynamic began to settle slowly. Ashley started attending regular therapy sessions with the girls, working to rebuild trust and their bond. Rick visited more frequently, learning to be a father through quiet reading sessions with Olivia and energetic playtimes with Emma. JT remained the family's rock, providing stability and unconditional love as the girls navigated their conflicting emotions. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, tears, and confusion. But there were also moments of laughter, hugs, and little joys that made it all worthwhile. One evening, as Rick prepared to leave after a visit, Emma surprised him with a tight hug. "Good night, Daddy," she whispered before running back to her room. Rick stood there, overwhelmed, feeling he was finally finding his place in this unconventional but loving family. As he left the apartment, he and JT shared a look of understanding. Both knew the road ahead would still be challenging, but they were united in their commitment to give Emma and Olivia all the love and support they deserved. As the weeks passed, the new family dynamic solidified. The twins, although sometimes still confused and emotionally fragile, seemed to be adapting to Ashley and Rick's presence in their lives. One Sunday afternoon, everyone gathered at JT's apartment for a family lunch. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and lively conversation. Emma proudly showed Ashley her latest drawing, while Olivia quietly read a book next to Rick. JT watched the scene from the kitchen, a gentle smile on his face. He still experienced moments of uncertainty, but seeing the girls' happiness reassured him they were on the right path. Rick approached JT, offering to help with the dishes. "Thank you," Rick said softly, "for being so incredible through all this." JT nodded, his expression earnest. "It's for the girls. It will always be for them." As the afternoon drew to a close and everyone prepared to leave, Emma and Olivia hugged each adult in turn, including Ashley and Rick. "Next weekend?" Emma asked hopefully. Ashley smiled, tears in her eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll be here." As the door closed behind Ashley and Rick, JT turned to the twins. "So, girls, how are you feeling?" Olivia, ever reflective, answered first. "It's different, but good, I think." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "I like having a big family." JT pulled them both into a hug, feeling a surge of love and protection. "Remember, no matter what happens, you'll always have me. Always." The girls hugged him back, and in that moment, despite all the challenges and uncertainties, JT knew they would be okay. This unconventional family, built on love, understanding, and patience, was only at the beginning of its journey together. The routine of this new, unconventional family was settling in when the unexpected happened. One autumn morning, JT noticed Olivia was quieter than usual, her face pale and eyes dull. "Olivia, honey, are you feeling all right?" JT asked, concern evident in his voice. Olivia just shook her head, clutching her teddy bear more tightly. JT placed a hand on her forehead, alarmed at how hot it felt. "Emma, please stay with your sister while I call the doctor," JT said, trying to remain calm. As JT dialed the pediatrician's number, Emma sat beside Olivia on the bed, holding her hand. "You'll be okay, Olivia," she whispered, attempting to sound confident despite the fear in her own eyes. The doctor advised JT to bring Olivia to the hospital immediately, given how quickly her fever had spiked. Panicking, JT called Rick and Ashley while getting ready to leave. "Rick, it's JT. Olivia's sick. I'm taking her to the hospital. Can you come?" Rick's voice was tense on the other end. "On my way. Have you called Ashley?" "I will now. Please hurry." JT then called Ashley, his voice trembling as he explained. Ashley promised to meet them at the hospital as soon as possible. On the drive to the hospital, JT glanced in the rearview mirror every few seconds, checking on Olivia lying in the back seat with Emma holding her hand. Olivia's face was flushed with fever, and her breathing sounded labored. "Hang in there, sweetheart," JT murmured, pressing the accelerator a bit harder. Arriving at the ER, JT carried Olivia in his arms, Emma following close behind. The medical staff acted quickly, taking Olivia for immediate tests. Rick arrived moments later, worry etched on his usually composed face. "How is she?" he asked, placing a reassuring hand on JT's shoulder. "They took her for tests," JT answered, his voice shaking. "We still don't know what's wrong." Ashley arrived soon after, breathless and wide-eyed with fear. "Where is she? Where's my baby?" JT embraced her briefly, trying to offer comfort, even though he himself felt terrified. "She's with the doctors. All we can do is wait." The next few hours were an agonizing wait. Emma curled up in a chair, her eyes large and frightened, fixed on the doors through which Olivia had disappeared. Rick paced back and forth, occasionally making phone calls, using his influence to ensure Olivia got the best care possible. Ashley alternated between silent weeping and moments of fierce determination, swearing she would do anything to see her daughter well again. Finally, a doctor emerged, his expression serious. "Family of Olivia Miller?" Everyone leaped to their feet. "That's us," JT said, flanked on either side by Rick and Ashley. "Olivia has a severe pneumonia," the doctor explained. "We've started antibiotic treatment, but her condition is concerning. She'll need to remain hospitalized for constant monitoring." Ashley let out a muffled sob, and Rick instinctively embraced her. JT, feeling his legs weaken, leaned against the nearest wall. "Can we see her?" Emma asked in a small voice, reminding them of her presence. The doctor gave her a gentle smile. "Of course you can. She's sleeping right now, but I'm sure she'll be glad to have you close when she wakes up." The hospital room felt huge and intimidating, with Olivia lying in the bed, looking so small and frail, connected to tubes and monitors. Ashley rushed to the bedside, taking Olivia's hand and pressing it to her lips. "Mommy's here, my love," she whispered, tears sliding silently down her face. JT stood on the other side of the bed, gently smoothing Olivia's hair. Rick stood at the foot of the bed, worry and resolve etched into his features. Emma climbed carefully onto the bed, lying beside her sister and holding her other hand. The following days were a blur of tests, treatments, and sleepless nights. The family took shifts, so Olivia would never be alone. Rick used his connections to bring in specialists from across the country, determined not to leave anything to chance. "I don't care about the cost," he said firmly when a doctor mentioned an experimental treatment. "Do whatever it takes." Ashley surprised everyone with her strength and devotion. She rarely left Olivia's side, singing softly to her and telling stories, even when Olivia was unconscious from the high fever. "Remember when we went to the zoo, Olivia?" Ashley whispered, holding her daughter's hand. "You were so fascinated by the giraffes. You said you wanted to be tall like them when you grew up. Well, you're going to grow up, my love. You're going to be strong and tall and healthy. You just need to fight a little longer, okay?" JT became the emotional anchor of the family, comforting Emma, who was scared and confused, and offering words of support to Ashley and Rick during the hardest moments. One night, finding Rick alone in the waiting room with his head in his hands, JT sat beside him. "Hey," he said gently. "How are you holding up?" Rick lifted his head, his eyes red from exhaustion and worry. "I should be asking you that," he replied with a sad smile. "You've been so strong for all of us." JT shook his head. "We're all being strong. That's what families do." Rick looked at JT for a long moment. "You know, when I found out I was Emma and Olivia's father, I was terrified. I didn't think I'd know how to be a dad. But watching you, JT, you've taught me more about fatherhood in these last few weeks than any book or counselor could." Tears threatened to spill from JT's eyes. "Thank you, Rick. That means a lot." The two men sat in silence for a moment, finding comfort in each other's presence. Meanwhile, Emma was fighting her own battles. She missed Olivia terribly and couldn't fully understand why her sister couldn't just come home and get better. One afternoon, Ashley found Emma sitting alone in the hospital corridor, hugging her knees. "Hey, sweetie," Ashley said gently, sitting down beside her. "What are you doing out here?" Emma looked at Ashley, tears in her eyes. "Is it my fault Olivia is sick?" Ashley was stunned. "Oh, sweetheart, no, of course it's not your fault. Why would you think that?" Emma sniffled. Because I wished I was an only child once, when Olivia took my favorite doll without asking. I got mad and wished I didn't have a sister. And now she's sick, and it's my fault." Ashley's heart broke hearing the fear and guilt in Emma's voice. She pulled the girl into a tight hug. "Emma, my love, listen to me. This is not your fault. Sometimes people get sick, and it's nobody's fault. Olivia will get better, and when she does, she'll need her sister more than ever. You didn't do anything wrong, okay?" Emma nodded against Ashley's chest, softly sobbing. Ashley rocked her gently, murmuring words of comfort and love. As days turned into weeks, Olivia's condition slowly began to improve. Her fever finally subsided, and she started having longer periods of consciousness. One morning, while JT sat beside her bed, reading quietly from one of her favorite books, Olivia opened her eyes and offered a faint smile. "Dad?" she called, her voice hoarse but clear. JT dropped the book, leaning forward anxiously over the bed. "Olivia, honey, you're awake." Olivia nodded slightly. "I'm thirsty," she whispered. JT quickly got a cup of water with a straw, helping Olivia take small sips. "How are you feeling, my love?" "Tired," Olivia replied. "Where is everyone?" "They'll be so happy to see you awake," JT said, tears of relief streaming down his face. "I'll go get them right now." Minutes later, the room was packed. Ashley openly wept with joy, covering Olivia's face in kisses. Rick stood at the foot of the bed, a huge grin lighting up his tired face. Emma climbed onto the bed, hugging Olivia with all her might. "You're back!" Emma exclaimed. "I knew you'd come back." Olivia smiled, still weak but clearly happy to be surrounded by family. "I heard you," she said softly. "Even when I was sleeping, I heard all the stories and songs. It helped me find my way back." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. At that moment, the family gathered around Olivia's bed, each touching her in some way, as if to reassure themselves she was truly there. truly getting better. The following week saw a slow but steady recovery. Olivia had a long road ahead, but each day she grew stronger. True to his word, Rick ensured Olivia got the best possible care, bringing in physical therapists and rehabilitation specialists to help her regain her strength. Ashley practically moved into the hospital, determined to be present for every moment of Olivia's recovery. She learned from the nurses how to care for Olivia, administer her medications, and help with her breathing exercises. JT split his time between looking after Olivia in the hospital and making sure Emma didn't feel neglected. He took Emma to school, helped with homework, and tried to maintain some sense of normalcy in their lives. Emma, for her part, became the joy of the pediatric wing. She befriended other hospitalized children, shared her toys, and told funny stories to make everyone laugh. Her resilience and kindness touched all those around her. Finally, after almost 2 months in the hospital, Olivia was discharged. The day she came home was a celebration for the entire family. Ashley and JT decorated the apartment with balloons and streamers. Emma made a huge "Welcome Home" sign, covered in hand-drawn hearts and flowers. Rick arrived carrying a stack of gifts, new books, games, and toys to keep Olivia entertained during her recovery at home. When Olivia entered the apartment, leaning on JT for support, her eyes widened with surprise and delight. "All this is for me?" she asked, her voice still a bit weak but filled with emotion. "Of course, sweetheart," Ashley said, giving her a gentle hug. "We're so happy to have you back home." Olivia's recovery continued at home, with regular visits from doctors and therapists. The family adapted to a new routine, each doing their part to help her heal. Inspired by the experience, Rick made a decision that would change not only their lives, but potentially the lives of many other families. "I want to start a foundation," he announced one evening as everyone gathered for dinner. A foundation to help families in situations like ours, unconventional families facing medical and legal challenges. JT looked at Rick with admiration. "That's an incredible idea, Rick," Ashley agreed enthusiastically. "Think of how many lives we could impact." Olivia, who was listening intently, asked, "Can we help other kids who got sick like me?" Rick smiled at her. "Exactly, Olivia. We can help a lot of kids and their families." Emma, not wanting to be left out, added, "I can draw the foundation's logo." Everyone laughed, the sound of their joy filling the apartment in a way it hadn't for months. In the following weeks, Rick worked tirelessly to establish the foundation. He hired lawyers to handle the legal aspects, consultants to develop support programs, and began fundraising among his business contacts. Inspired by the project, JT decided it was time to return to education. He offered to work with the foundation, developing educational programs for children in complex family situations. "I want to use my experience as a teacher and as a father to make a difference," he explained to Rick. "These kids need someone who understands what they're going through." Rick was thrilled by the offer. "JT, I can't think of anyone better for the job. Welcome aboard." Ashley, in turn, found her calling as a counselor for single mothers and abuse victims. Her own journey of redemption and healing made her especially empathetic to women facing similar challenges. "I want other women to know there's hope," she told JT one evening. "That no matter how dark it seems, there's always a chance to start over." The twins, now 7, thrived under the love and support of their extended family. Emma remained extroverted and adventurous, always ready for new experiences. Olivia, though still quieter, had gained a new confidence after her recovery. 1 year after Olivia's illness, the family gathered for a big celebration. It was the twins' birthday, but also a celebration of everything they had overcome together. The backyard of JT's home was decorated with balloons and colorful streamers. A large banner proclaimed, "Happy Birthday, Emma and Olivia." A long table was covered with presents and a huge cake adorned with sugar flowers. Emma ran around excitedly, greeting all the guests, school friends, neighbors, and new friends they'd made through Rick's foundation. Olivia, calmer, sat with a small group, proudly showing off her latest drawings. JT watched the scene with a smile, remembering how it all began. Two terrified little girls in a park, a homeless man trying to do the right thing. Who would have thought they'd end up here? Ashley approached, offering JT a glass of lemonade. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. JT smiled. "How lucky we are," he replied. "Look at them, Ashley. Look at the family we've built." Ashley nodded, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I never thought I'd have this back," she said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on me, on us." Rick joined them, carrying a plate of snacks. "Hey, you two," he said cheerfully. "No time to get sentimental. We've got a party to enjoy." The three laughed together, their easy camaraderie a testament to how far they'd come. As night fell, the house grew quiet, filled with a sense of peace and contentment. It was more than just the end of a birthday party. It was the celebration of a new beginning, of a family that had found its way through adversity and emerged stronger. And as the stars shone outside, the promise of a bright future hovered over the sleeping house. A future filled with love, laughter, and the certainty that no matter what happened, they would always have one another. JT, Ashley, and Rick gathered on the porch, gazing at the night sky. "You know," Rick said softly, "we've been through so much to get here. There were times I thought we wouldn't make it. But look at us now." Ashley smiled. "It's the power of forgiveness," she said, "and unconditional love." JT nodded. "And a chosen family," he added, "because in the end, that's what we are, a family that chose to be together, no matter what." The three fell silent for a moment, absorbing the depth of what they'd achieved together. "Here's to the future," Rick finally said, raising his glass in a toast. "To our family," Ashley added. "To love," JT concluded. Their glasses clinked softly in the night air, sealing their promise to continue this journey together, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold with the strength of the love and unity they had forged. And so the chapter closed, not with an ending, but with the beginning of a new phase, a phase of hope, healing, and unconditional love, proving that sometimes the strongest families are those we choose to create together.